everyone, and good evening to those in the other parts of the world. Good morning and good evening, partners and colleagues. I hope everyone has been keeping safe, healthy, and well. So, yeah, we can see that we have more than 100 participants in the webinar room, and so we can proceed and kick off this industry dialogue today. I am Marlon Joseph Apanyada, Clean Energy Investment Accelerator, Philippines Country Lead, and World Resources Institute Southeast Asia Engagement Lead for Climate and Energy. In collaboration with the Business for Sustainable Development and the Department of Energy's Renewable Energy Management Bureau, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the second industry dialogue on green energy procurement for corporates. This second CEIA-led industry dialogue aims to advance engagement on the topics from the kickoff dialogue held last July 19th. The first dialogue allowed the discussion on how to enable and/or expedite corporates to procure renewable energy at scale in the Philippines. This is within the context of present regulatory realities vis-a-vis the ambitions set by companies to contribute meaningfully to decarbonization and net zero pathways. We also had a panel discussion in that first dialogue in which two internationally headquartered corporates shared their insights on the challenges and opportunities of renewable energy procurement from the perspective of each of their companies. We also learned that several solutions are already being implemented in other countries to help commercial and industrial consumers that do not own the buildings that they occupy to directly procure renewable energy. And one of these solutions that could be most applicable in the Philippines is green leases. So through this event, we hope to spark up a rich set of conversations and dive deeper on two main things. First, green leases as a potential renewable energy procurement solution for corporates who are only leasing the facilities they operate in, as well as discuss the matter on expanded retail choice, perhaps the target of lowering the contestability thresholds further to enable small and medium enterprises or SMEs and smaller businesses to choose their electricity source through the retail competition and open access method or via the Green Energy Option Program. We will find out what actors need, what actions need to be taken by energy stakeholders and decision makers to allow more consumers to have the power of choice and demand for clean energy. So next slide, please. This will be the flow for today's event. After this context setting and quick introduction, we will hear from a representative of a Philippine headquartered corporate to learn more about their company's renewable energy journey. As mentioned earlier, we also want to know more about the topic on green leases since it was brought up during the first dialogue and can be considered a viable solution that might fit right into the Philippine setting. We will have a deep dive discussion on green leases to be presented by our guest from the United States National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or USNREL. We will also be joined by longtime supporters and collaborators of the Clean Energy Investment Accelerator, who now helm important positions in the Department of Energy and the Energy Regulatory Commission. We shall get their insights on how regulators have been able to support corporate renewable energy procurement, as well as talk through the challenges and opportunities for expanded retail choice through the RCOA implementation. We then conclude the program with a moderated discussion before wrapping things up with discussion of key takeaways and next steps. Next slide, please. To start off, I'd like to give a quick background of the Clean Energy Investment Accelerator, or CEIA. We are a public-private partnership that addresses barriers to clean energy deployment in the commercial and industrial sectors in emerging markets, which include Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The Clean Energy Investment Accelerator is jointly led by the World Resources Institute, or WRI, Allocation partners, and the United States National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Each member brings a unique set of technical expertise to ensure successful country-based efforts led by local and regional staff, which is all supported by a wider global team. Next slide, please. We partner with large energy purchasers to send a strong demand signal and deploy clean energy, and collaborates with governments to strengthen policy frameworks to grow clean energy project pipelines. We act as a bridge, translating international commitments into on-the-ground market transformation. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we see the various platforms that have been set in order to advance the conversation on renewable energy procurement and net zero ambitions. The logos you see on your screen are examples of platforms and organizations. We see here the Science Based Targets Initiative, the Clean Energy Buyers Association, the Philippines' contribution to this effort, which is the Renewable Energy PH100 or REPH100, the global platform RE100. They all help contribute and support corporates that are committed to achieving the renewable energy and net zero targets. So these platforms, the emergence of these platforms and their continued expansion as a strong voice of corporates are a main driver on why we're having this conversation today. Because of these corporate commitments that we have heard, as well as their energy transition goals and energy supply diversification requirements, we know that global and national corporates really want more renewables. Buyers want to buy renewables, but there are gaps for which they're not able to do so, and that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation today. Next slide, please. So for this dialogue, we are joined by amazing experts who have agreed to impart their knowledge and experiences to help us effectively navigate this industry dialogue, as well as achieve our objective for today's activity. We have Ms. Stephanie Ann Frogoso, Sustainability Manager from Holcim Philippines. We also have Ms. Ella Zhou, Senior Model Engineer from the US NREL. Next slide, please. Joining us as well is Assistant Secretary Mylene Capongcol, Officer in Charge and Assistant Secretary from the Department of Energy. And we also have here today the Chairperson of the Energy Regulatory Commission, Attorney Mona Lisa de Malanta. And yours truly, I will be moderating today's industry dialogue. So, next slide, please. A quick round of context. Here, we see the pathways towards 100% renewable energy for corporates. We have the retail competition, open retail electricity and competitive access, retail electricity and open access, which are applicable to end users with monthly peak demand greater than 500 kilowatts. And we also have the Green Energy Option Program, which is applicable to end users with monthly peak demand greater than 100 kilowatts. So the main difference between the two is that under our COA, the retail choice can also be non-renewable. Only a portion of the electricity may be generated from our resources, but end users also have the option to procure non-green sources. But under the Green Energy Option Program, apart from the lower contestability threshold, our requirement for this is that it has to be 100% renewable energy. Next slide, please. So we've seen from our various dialogues and our various discussions and focus group meetings with different industry stakeholders that there are challenges for each of these renewable energy procurement options. Under our COA, as we can see from the bullets, it's not 100% RE as choices for for end users. Second, it really only applies to building and facility owners and not to lessors of buildings and facilities. The threshold is still quite high, so to speak, with at least 500 kilowatts, making SMEs and smaller businesses unable to participate under the ARCOA scheme. And as of August 2022, we see that ARCOA participants are only at around 2,000 registrants or so based on IMOP data, which means that there's really a vast amount, a big room for expansion so that more participants can join. Under the Green Energy Option Program, which we learned has only been fully implemented at the start of this year, with the first transactions happening, we see the issue and concept of replacement power and 100% migration requirement as a main impediment for participation among commercial and industrial end users. Again, similar to ARCOA, it only applies to building and facility owners. While the threshold is already lower at 100 kilowatts, it also means that others, much smaller SMEs and MSMEs, are not able to join the Green Energy Option Program. And we also see that there's rather slow uptake of GEOP among companies. We noticed that the uptake of GEOP has been really slow, rather, with only 68 facilities currently under the program per the IMOP database. These 68 facilities are owned by just less than 50 unique customers. And if we do a back of the envelope calculation, assuming an average of 250 kilowatts demand per facility, this only translates to a rather small 16.75 megawatts of RE demand in the first 6 months of the policy's implementation, leaving much room for improvement. So with both ARCOA and GEOP, as we see from the numbers, there's really room for improvement so that corporates can enjoy these as renewable energy procurement pathways. But with these challenges that we see on the screen, we know that these challenges need to be addressed. These are opportunities for stakeholders like us in this room to talk about these and look at solutions. So next slide, please. So having mentioned all of these in our backgrounder, we aim to start conversations today by answering these 3 questions. Number 1, is there an opportunity for companies that are not necessarily facility or building owners to directly procure renewable energy? Number 2, is there an opportunity to scale the Green Energy Option Program and ARCOA participation? And number 3, is there an opportunity for smaller businesses, including those with less than 100 kilowatts monthly demand consumption, to enjoy retail choice? So our goal for today's industry dialogue is to validate if the proposed solutions you see on your screens, we're offering some solutions for the questions. As you can see on the screens, are they all at all feasible? And if we can look forward to these as viable options that energy stakeholders alongside the government can work towards. Green leases and other similar products, enhanced stakeholder awareness, knowledge sharing, and reminders in concert with renewable energy suppliers, as well as expanded retail choice via either the GEOP or ARCOA. So, and we want to identify what roles do each of us need to play to effectively support the demand for procurement options for renewable energy among corporates. So with that, let us proceed to our first speaker. Next slide, please. To kick off our discussion, please help me in welcoming Ms. Stephanie Ann Forgoso, who is the Sustainability Manager of our leading corporate player in the Philippines, Holcim Philippines. Stephanie holds a geology degree from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and has more than a decade of experience in the industry-leading building solutions company, Holcim Philippines. She is the current sustainability manager and leads the development of company-wide sustainability strategy and the execution plan to accelerate green growth of the business. So let us hear about Holcim's renewable energy journey, including the opportunities and challenges that they are facing and the strategies and targets they plan to achieve. So with that, Ms. Stephanie, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Marlon. So good morning to everyone. I'm very excited to be part of this industry dialogue and as a representative of the corporates in this dialogue. So before I start my presentation, I would like to introduce first our company briefly. So basically, we are part of the Holcim Group. We are the world's global leader in building solutions with about 2,300 operating sites across the globe. And we are leading the way in sustainability with our net zero pledge targets validated by Science-Based Targets initiatives. And 1/3 of our net sales are coming from green solutions. We also have #1 research and development organization in our industry. So as part of the Holcim Group, our commitment is to advance progress for people and planet by making cities greener from foundation to rooftop with our low carbon solutions, empowering society with smarter infrastructure, including the push for renewable energy in our operational sites and projects, and also improving living standards for all with affordable and sustainable solutions that we offer in the market. So we are actually located strategically nationwide in the Philippines. So we have 4 cement plants located in Norzagaray, Bulacan, in Davao City. We also have a cement plant in Bacnotan, La Union, and Misamis or Lugait in Lugait plant. And our head office is located in McKinley Hill, Fort Bonifacio, Taguig City. We also have a cement grinding plant located in Mabini, Batangas, a Kalumpit paper bag plant, and we also have a dry mix plant and some terminals located across the country. So we have a wide range of sustainable and innovative building solutions, and we advocate the right products for the right application. So just to share, the first general use purpose cement that we offered in the market last year with less than 30% less carbon footprint than the ordinary Portland cement, which is the EcoPlanet cement. And these are some of our dry mix products as well, and some of our building solutions as well. Now, we used to build a number of iconic and essential structures in the country, the windmills in Ilocos, Davao City Airport, and all other infrastructures in the Philippines. And as mentioned earlier, our purpose is to build progress for the country, and so sustainability and innovation is at the core of our strategy. We are committed to becoming a net zero company and spearheading the transition towards low carbon construction while promoting circular economy from alternative fuels to concrete recycling. So these are the 4 pillars that guide our business actions. First, becoming net zero. So as a global group, we have signed the business ambition for 1.5 degrees Celsius pledge with science-based intermediate targets in alignment with a net zero pathway. So this includes our scope 2 emission from purchased electricity. And in driving circular economy, we reuse waste as substitute for fossil fuels and other raw materials, and also addressing society's waste problem. And on safeguarding nature, we optimize the use of natural resources like water. And on people, we are committed to promoting human rights, affordable housing, and the well-being for all. So let's look at the role of the construction industry in climate change. So basically, the building and construction sector produces 38% of energy-related global CO2 emissions. Now, 30% of the 38, or 1/4, comes from the construction process. So as a building solutions company, this is what we want to address to reduce the embodied carbon or the carbon footprint of building materials. So how are we doing it? So we classify our carbon emissions in 3 different categories. You have the scope 1, which is, of course, our direct emission coming from the calcination of limestone or the raw materials and fuel combustion in our cement production. This accounts for 75% of our total carbon emissions. And our scope 2, which is the main topic on this discussion, is from purchased electricity that accounts for 5% of our total carbon footprint. And we are also looking at reducing our scope 3 emissions, which accounts for 20% from logistics and supply chain. Now, these are the targets that we have set as validated by Science Based Targets Initiative at the group level. So let's highlight the scope 2 emission. So basically by 2030, we are looking at, because our metrics is kilogram CO2 per ton of cementitious product that we produce under scope 2, we target to be at 13 by 2030, while 2021, we are at 34 at the group level. Now, how about the Philippines? So the Philippines, we are at 70, no, or around that a carbon footprint emission. And it's challenging because for a developing country with our energy mix, which is largely still composed of coal, we are really pushing to transition to renewable energy for our electricity. And then by 2030, we target to reduce to 60%, 60 to 65%. And to reach net zero by 2050, we recognize that we need to mobilize or use carbon capture, utilization, and storage to achieve net zero. So that's part of our roadmap by 2050 at the group level. Okay, so this is our path to net zero. So I would like to highlight this part on renewable energy, on transitioning to renewable energy. So in the Philippines, we have signed the deal with Blue Leaf Energy. So basically, we are the country's first cement maker with on-site solar power plant. So we'll be putting up a solar power plant in our sites in Bulacan and La Union plant, in Luzon plant. And this will account for 15% of our total energy requirement. So basically, our peak demand is actually 100 megawatt combined for all our sites. And aside from renewable energy transition in our operations, we also have initiatives to reduce our carbon footprint or scope 2 from the offices. No? So we have a project called Office Goes Green, where the target is to really move to renewable energy source for our offices, and also transitioning to electric vehicle. So why I highlighted transitioning to electric vehicle, because if you transition to EV for our company cars, it would be best to have the source of electricity when you charge the batteries from renewable energy source, right? So because right now it's all coming from the grid, for example. So, okay, so now moving on to the challenges and opportunities. So in the operations internally, what we are seeing on the challenges are the land availability to expand our solar farms and renewable energy supply availability close to our operational sites. And on the offices, so because our corporate office located in McKinley Hill is leased, so the building owner has limited flexibility to shift to renewable energy source. And for us as an end user, it's also an option not to transfer to certified green buildings with renewable energy source. But of course, this has some cost considerations for us. Now, on the opportunities that we are looking at internally, so we will continue to drive operational improvements to drive energy efficiency in our operations and also in our offices. And on the external opportunities that we are seeing, I guess this is the long overdue discussion on the opening of energy retail market in Mindanao, because we have operational sites in Mindanao for end users to choose renewable energy source from the grid, especially if on-site or embedded capacities are not feasible. And then favorable regulatory framework and technology availability to further promote the use and development of renewable energy sources. So as an end user, we recognize the efforts of the government to push for policies for us to transition to green energy. And so on this dialogue, I'm really looking forward to know more about the emerging solutions like green leases, on how end users can adopt these solutions for us to accelerate our transition to green energy. So I guess that's all for my presentation, and thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much, Stephanie, and great to hear about the initiatives of Holcim and the pioneering efforts it has been undertaking towards net zero and to achieve its climate commitments. It was especially insightful to note the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 distribution of your emissions. And while scope 2 that covers energy emissions only has 5% weight, it's really an opportunity for us to collectively work on together, given the challenges that you've faced, which are consistent with what I was mentioning earlier, that were raised by other industry stakeholders. It's a good segue as well for our next speaker, who will be providing a deep dive discussion on what green leases is all about. As we've heard from Stephanie and the Holcim team, being lessors of offices and buildings and facilities really present a limitation because of the flexibility of the building owner. So we hope that with this presentation, we'll be able to have a better understanding of the concept of green leases. So this will be presented by our colleague, Ella Jo, Senior Model Engineer from the United States National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or USNREL. With over a decade of experience in the energy industry, Ella has led complex energy transition programs with 15 to 100 domestic and international stakeholders, from the proposal phase, strategic partnership building, and through implementation. So we're really privileged to have Ella join us today from the United States. So please go ahead, Ella. We're eager to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Ivan, for the introduction. It's a great pleasure and honor to be amongst such a prestigious panel of speakers. Can you see my screen? Okay. I want to introduce green leasing because the problem is we have a split incentive. The tenants pay the electricity bill, but the building owners will pay or they will own the energy efficiency projects or renewable projects, whatever retrofits or upgrades that's down to their buildings. So what a green lease does is that it includes clauses that equitably align costs and benefits of energy investments and unlock win-win investment in energy efficiency and sustainability. I put an illustration here because get my pointer out. Because the green lease is really not just about energy. Energy is only a piece of it. It can also include clauses on water and waste and overall kind of environmental management of that building. And then energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades could be a part of the green lease, but not all of it. For the purpose of this presentation, I'll focus on the part that talks about energy, but just bear in mind, it could also cover water and waste and other issues. In terms of global implementation, according to a GEOP survey of over 200 real estate investors in Europe, North America, and Asia Pacific, 42 of these investors have adopted green lease clauses, and an additional 37% have plans to adopt them by 2025. And green leases are already mandatory in France for all large commercial leases. And Asia has been lagging behind in green lease uptake, but it is gaining momentum in recent years among landlords and large multinational occupiers with sustainability targets, very much like the group we have today. In Singapore, they have established a target of having 80% of all building stock to be green by 2030. And then they have released a green lease template back in 2014. And then they introduced the Building Construction Authority Green Mark Pro Award to promote buildings that introduce green leases. And then in March, Hong Kong's Link Real Estate Investment Trust secure a $12 billion sustainability-linked loan, which also requires it to encourage green leases with its tenants. So we're seeing a gradual building of momentum of green lease adoption around the world and also in Asia. Why is green lease very interesting to both the investors, building owners, and the tenants? So for the tenants, the green leases can reduce your energy consumption, which means it will reduce your total cost. Green lease could potentially reduce about 22% of the energy consumption in US office buildings, which will translate to a utility bill reduction about 51 cents per square feet, providing $3.3 billion in annual cost saving. And green lease can also lead to higher quality spaces for tenants, which means higher productivity. And research have shown that green leases can facilitate building improvements related to thermal comfort, indoor air quality, and others, leading to an increased productivity by 8 to 10%, which is very important under this economy. And then the happy tenants, the happy tenants means that you will have higher retirement of the tenants, which leads to the benefit for landlords. For landlords, green leases can translate to higher occupancy rates and higher returns. The Rocky Mountain Institute reports a 3 to 7% higher occupancy rate, and then 3.5% higher rental rates, and 13% higher sale value for some of the green lease buildings that are considered net zero energy. And then some of the efficiency upgrades can also increase the landlord's net management income because they are eligible for some financial incentives such as tax reductions. And it will also create a marketing advantage for these landlords, because green leases have gained a lot of popularity, especially among multinational firms and data centers with sustainability commitments. So how does green lease work? So this is a very simple 3-step procedure for green lease adoption. The first step is plan, the second step is do, the third step is check, and the fourth step is act. For the planning, it's about what do you want out of the green lease. It's about energy saving, it's about CO2 emission reduction, which means you might want to adopt some renewable energy. Is it about water saving or waste reduction, or is it about improvement of comfort for occupants? So one green lease could encompass several of these objectives. The second step is to implement some clauses such as data sharing. So for instance, what is the energy consumption for each tenant? And then it's about target setting. It could be about acquisition of environmental and renewable certifications, collaboration on environmental considerations and comfort improvements, establishment of working committees, and an exemption from obligation to restore tenanted space to original state, which exists in some of the rental leases. The third step is check. So the building owner and tenants typically will establish some form of a committee to monitor the information sharing and building management as established in the green lease. And then finally, act. The green lease can be quite flexible, and the flexibility is what helps green lease to be effective. So it can include clauses on updates and revisions during the period of real estate lease agreement. These are, I want to introduce some green lease basics. So each green lease is very unique because of the regulatory environment and also because of the specific needs for that landlord and occupier. In the Netherlands, the sustainability clauses are typically addressed in the form of a letter of intent attached to the lease. It's not addressed in the main lease. In the United Kingdom, the landlord and tenant can use a memorandum of understanding in addition to that lease. So it doesn't matter where that green lease clause appear. It's about they can address certain issues. These are some of the basic clauses that are typically included in the green lease. So the first one is the allocation of costs and the pass-through clauses. This is the main clause that addresses the split incentive problem. This is about how do you pass the cost of these renewable project or efficiency upgrades from the landlord to the occupants in a equitable manner. The second one is about metering and data collection and reporting, because if you don't know how much energy they are using, there is no way you can manage the energy consumption. And then the third one is charging utilities according to consumption. So in this case, some landlords, instead of having the actual utility charging each individual tenant, the landlord might take responsibility of paying for these tenants, and then they will have sub-meters to monitor the energy usage of each tenant, and then the tenants will pay the electricity consumption to the landlords instead of pay the utility directly. And then the fourth one is about fit outs, alterations, maintenance, and replacement of equipment as necessary. And then the fourth one is about environmental management plan and sustainability manual. This is about how this building will be managed. What are the set points on the HVAC, for instance? The sixth could be about green projects or renewable projects. So it could include things like a solar rooftop and how that gets passed down to the tenants. And then the next one is it could include obligation to use renewable energy. So for instance, the US Green Building Council has a minimum renewable energy table that awards points to these buildings when they are applying for a green building, to award points based on how much of the building's consumption is renewable. And then Mexico also has a clause that establishes that all sustainable building must have at least 10% of the total demand coming from renewable energy. The next one is it could include some clauses on water and waste management. It could include clauses on establish a building management committee or some remedial measures. So there are a lot of information resources on, what are the exact language in the landlord lease versus the tenant's lease, and I have provided some links in the PowerPoint slide that I think will be shared with you later. Now I want to show you two case studies that are pretty interesting, especially when we're talking about green lease in relation with renewable energy procurement. So the first one is about Link Logistics. They own a lot of warehouses and distribution centers in the United States. So because they are warehouses and distribution centers, they have very large roof space, but very low energy use. The solution is that they put up some rooftop solar, renewable energy. So they established the renewable rooftop solar project as an operating lease, where the solar developer pays the roof rent, and then the solar generation is sent to the grid through a community solar program. And then the subscribers of the community solar program could be residents, could be commercial tenants around the neighborhood. It doesn't even have to be inside this building. And then they created a standard operation procedure called a solar kit for easy deployment of this rooftop solar project at all, for that site, for all the sites that are eligible. And then they are not restricted by net metering limits. The impact is that as of 2021, Link Logistics has already installed 57 megawatt of solar capacity across 37 sites. And then it's targeting 300 megawatt by 2025. The second case is for shopping center owners. So this comes from a group called Brixmor Property Group. They're one of the largest shopping center owners in the United States. They own and operates more than 475 properties across 36 states. So for shopping center owners, they have a lot of tenants. They have very high daytime usage. of electricity, but not a lot of nighttime usage. And energy efficiency is also very important for them. So their solution is to implement energy efficiency and on-site renewable generation in their green lease. The lease clauses ensures that Brixmor, as the landlord, has the right to install renewable energy systems on the rooftop of the property. And then the tenants are required to purchase electricity from Brixmor, the landlord, which provide an efficient and financially responsible manner to sell the power generated on site. And then it also requires the tenants to install submeters in their spaces. And then when they don't have submeters, they're required to report electricity, gas, water, and waste generation and diversion data on a quarterly basis. And they also upgraded all the properties to LED lighting to gain higher energy efficiency. So in this case, essentially is, Brixmor as the building owner and an operator, it will pay the electricity bill for its property, and then its tenants will pay Brixmor the electricity that is generated on site. The impact is so far 3 solar projects have been completed, with additional projects in California, New York, and Connecticut. And then the green lease clauses in a Gateway Plaza assisted more than 20 tenants to sign up as off-takers for the property's solar project. So as a country, what a country could do to encourage green leasing. As we've seen in other cases like Singapore, the first step is to provide education and information around green leasing, and then show people what are the benefits for the tenants, what are the benefits for the landlords, the property owners, and then, people are driven by, profits and, benefits. And then the second step is to develop a green leasing guideline and provide green lease templates around the legal language that is allowed in the jurisdiction. The third step is to recognize green lease leaders, such as landlords, tenants, real estate practitioners. So in America, we have this green lease leader program that has been expanding very fast. In fact, it expanded by 23% just in 2021. And then the fourth one is to build a community of practice. So in the US Green Lease Leader program on the website, you can have access to these green lease documents, shared green leases, and then the shared case studies of different green lease leaders that were recognized during this program. So building a community of practice and share the best practice will be very important. This is all for my presentation. If you have any question, please reach out to me at this email address, and I look forward to the discussion.
All right. Thank you so much, Ella. And it's wonderful to learn more about the green lease concept and to have that deep dive discussion here. I noted that among the 220 plus real estate players in Europe, North America, and APAC, 42% are already offering green leases, and it's already mandatory in France. And you showed the 2 case studies wherein spare warehouse space was used to sell to the grid and to the community, and a landlord doing the investments and passing on the commercial arrangements with its tenants. So these are things that we're going to consider in the moderated discussion, and thanks for sharing this information. So at this juncture, we will now hear from the chairperson of the Energy Regulatory Commission, or ERC, Attorney Mona Lisa de Balansta, to learn more about the challenges and opportunities for expanded retail choice through the Retail Competition and Open Access, or RCOA, implementation. In order to allow more consumers to have the power of choice and demand for clean energy, the ERC has set a target to reduce the RCOA participation threshold to 10 kilowatts by January 2023, And we hope to know more on what actions need to be taken by energy stakeholders and decision makers to achieve this objective. So ERC Chairperson Attorney Mona has been a recognized energy practitioner in the Philippines and Southeast Asia, a leader in the power sector and other various areas. So on August 2022, she assumed her current post as the chairperson of the Philippines ERC, and we are glad to have her as our in this kickoff dialogue as in her new stint and role as ERC chair. Attorney Mona, we're eager to hear from you.
Thank you, Marlon, and good morning. Can you hear me well? Okay, good. Wanted to check because we're working off-site today. I'm currently joining you from Cebu, where we currently are holding a stakeholder discussion since yesterday. It's like a regulatory caravan that we are doing. So we are in Cebu now. Then we will be in Mindanao next month, where the entire commission is here. We're holding our commission meetings here, and yesterday I joined. Today I'll join them again. But yesterday we joined the consumer education workshop facilitated by the Visayas office of the ERC. So thank you again, Marlon, and to the group for inviting me, and good morning to Ella from NREL. Good morning, Asik Maylene from the DOE, and Stephanie I see from Holcim is here. So magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. I was listening very closely to the presentation of NREL, and still to this day, I know Marlon knows this and Asik Maylene knows this because we had several fora that we discussed the CRES study, which was contracted by the DOE, by the Department of Energy, together with NREL. And while I was at NREB at that time, such a big fan of the CRES study and the CRES report, and the potential that it really holds for us here in the Philippines as we try to accelerate the utilization of renewable energy. So I was listening closely to this idea of green leases, and I don't want to preempt Asik Maylene's presentation, but as I was listening to it, I could identify certain portions that we already have in a way in the Philippines, but it's called a different name. Like one program that we have, for instance, is already the net metering program that are available for all users. So and that we know that like the warehouse leases that Ella was discussing earlier, they are being utilized and registered in the Philippines under the net metering program. So the value of the electricity that's exported by the consumer is already quantified. There is a corresponding compensation for it. And then I'm realizing that there is even value on a green value now that's available for the real estate itself, and maybe that's another one that we can develop, we can provide framework for, because I think currently, admittedly, we don't have yet that value imputed on the lease or on the real estate that is being used for green projects. What we currently have are just, they are run-of-the-mill vanilla type leases that do not really recognize the value of the property and how it contributes to energy transition. So maybe that's one area we can look at. Maybe to get not just the ERC, but DOE and DTI, the Department of Trade and Industry, because they're the ones that really are at the front line of all these industries that enter the Philippines for investment. The other area that I wanted to touch upon, and Marlon mentioned earlier, the progress in retail competition and ARCOA. The lowering of the threshold to 10 kilowatts or 100 kilowatts is really quite aggressive. But if you think about it, over the 20-year timeline that EPIRA is already operational in the Philippines, or already effective in the Philippines, and the targets that the timeline in terms of targets that EPIRA had in place, one would tend to get impatient. So 20 years and now we're still talking about lowering it to the household level when EPIRA was passed in 2001. That was really the goal. So it's taking us that long. But looking now at how things have turned out, I think in a way it allowed us to the length of time allows us to learn and recalibrate and adjust because admittedly there are many things in our market that still need to be improved before we really get down to competition at the household level. Why do I say that? Today we have a very active contestable market at 500 kilowatt threshold. But we are realizing that contestable players also need some guidance that, lowering the threshold does not automatically convert contestable customers who suddenly competition savvy players in the market. And they are encountering problems dealing with retail electricity suppliers and also knowing how to participate in this market. So the assumption that you just lower the threshold and it's suddenly a level playing field between the customers and the suppliers may be something that needs to be revisited, that it's not automatic, that you open the doors for competition and all of a sudden consumers, large consumers and suppliers are on equal bargaining ground. There's still some education that we need to do, some training that we need to do to really make it an effective negotiating position between the two parties. So to address Marlon's point directly, we are not in a hurry in a way to at this point to lower the threshold, especially since what we are seeing in the market is really increasing electricity rates in the Philippines. So we don't want more contestable customers to be grappling with high electricity rates and knowing that they might end up as price takers in this market. So we'll tread carefully. That's still we're still studying it, the timing of the threshold. So it's still the goal, but at the same time, we already have all these programs in place. As I mentioned, the lowering of the threshold is lower now. There are more players participating, and perhaps ASEC Maylene will also discuss this. We already have the Green Energy Option Program, which has a 100 kilowatt threshold, a much lower threshold than the retail electricity, retail competition and open access threshold. So there is already space for more players in the market and more opportunity for consumers to really exercise their power of choice if they do wish to have that ability in the market. We also already have the retail aggregation program that's already in place. I'm very proud to say that one of the pioneering parties here is the University of the Philippines, my alma mater. The University of the Philippines is now participating in the retail aggregation program, and it's a pilot program. And I think this approach of doing pilots is one thing that we will, as a commission, we would want to explore and expand. I think, and I've discussed this in some fora as well, maybe we can adopt a sandbox approach in coming up with regulations for all these new technologies that are opening in the market. The sandbox approach has been very effective in the finance space. We now have a lot of fintech products because of the sandbox approach in regulation. So maybe for the power industry is something that we can that we can also explore, and maybe for green leases and the like, which we can adopt in a controlled, somehow controlled environment, and then see how it works, and then formulate regulations based on our observations of the impact of the result of the experiment, so to speak, is a better approach. So instead of adopting wholesale a regulation, making it applicable to the entire system right away, we can do sandboxes, and then we can make more effective regulatory framework that way. Finally, one thing I wanted to share is that we are also working on finalizing the distributed energy resources framework, DER rules. I know it's been a sort of start and stop approach, but we are ready to finalize it. I think in fact, today we are holding the first of the final series of public consultations on the DER rules. We'll hold it in Visayas today, and then Mindanao by next week, and Luzon next week, and then Mindanao. And then we hope to issue finally the DER rules by next month or early November is the target. So these are all, I think, positive development as we try to push for more retail competition and opening up to our consumers more options, that it's not only the traditional supply setup that they can rely on. There are also all these avenues for more I would say democratic opportunities for sourcing supply. So with that, thank you again, Marlon, and I'm really looking forward to listening also to ASEC Mylene. And Ella, I will ask for a copy of your presentation, because there are so many things to learn as usual from NREL in their experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Mona. And I know we still have 2 minutes of your time before your next meeting, so we'll take advantage of that. Thank you for raising the issue of capacity building, sandbox pilots. There's just two main questions from the Q&A. Interesting question about, can retail aggregation be allowed via the GEOP, aggregation of 100 kilowatts for 100% RE supply, or is it still under ARCOA right now?
We'll ask ASEC Mylene that question, because right now I think the GEOP, the GEOP implementation is really under DOE. So I'm curious as well, but I see no difficulty in terms of just applying, but better to get the direction from the DOE on that point.
Yeah, and I guess the other question might also touch on ASEC Mylene as well, about the consideration to review the pricing mechanism for the excess sold under net metering. Is that also?
I'll ask. Well, without prejudice to what ASEC Mylene will say, but if what you're asking is a possibility to review, yes is the answer to that one. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Mona. Always a pleasure to have you in these conversations. We look forward to supporting and working with you in your new role as ERC Chair, and the CIA is always here to support you. And thanks for the time provided to us today. I know that you're
Thank you. I'll still listen into ASEC May. I will learn some more.
Yes. Thank you, Attorney Mona. And with that, of course, we are now at this juncture very excited to hear from Assistant Secretary Mylene Capongcol from the Department of Energy, who will provide her reaction and insights on the renewable energy procurement discussion that we've been having from the perspective of the government, including the previous presentation on green leases, the challenges and opportunities cited by Holcim, as well as the viewpoints shared by Attorney Mona. So ASEC Mylene has more than 30 years of experience in policy development and project management, developing strategies and reforms in the power and renewable sectors, including the total electrification program of the country. She was designated as Officer in Charge Assistant Secretary of the Department of Energy, effective August 23rd of this year. So less than a month into this new post, Attorney Mylene. So with that, we're really privileged to hear from you and welcome your insights and viewpoints. The floor is yours, Attorney ASEC Mylene.
Okay, thank you, Marlon, and of course, good morning to our workaholic energy regulatory commission's chairperson, the person who I can text in the middle of the night to ask and discuss some energy matters, and of course, nice to meet Ms. Stephanie Ann for Progoso, as well as Ella Zhu, of the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. We have this ongoing and continuing engagement with the National Energy Laboratory, as what had been mentioned by earlier by Chair Mona. The CREST project actually has been completed for the phase 1, and we're now working on the phase 2 of the CREST. Now we're just awaiting some issues regarding the transmission development plan processes, but we're happy to inform everyone that the transmission development plan, the latest that was prepared by the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, already embodied the CREST, under Chapter 6 of that. And we're now working towards the two activities that will support greater integration of renewable, which is on the energy storage system, as well as what we call long-term planning and forecasting for the country's energy demand and supply, considering that we have this target of clean energy scenario in the next coming years. Now, my task this morning actually is to give insight or react to the two papers or a presentation prepared by our honorable speakers, Ms. Stephanie and Ms. Ella. Actually, it will go hand in hand, so I can have only one reaction to both now, because this will encompass renewable energy and some of the programs and the strategies that the Department of Energy is currently doing. So first, on the green leasing and adoption support paper, I noticed somehow a resemblance on our ESCO program, the Energy Service Company program, wherein building owners enter into agreement with the ESCO providers duly certified and registered by Department of Energy, and they enter into some sort of agreement for the sharing. So naturally, it's the ESCO who provides the investment by providing multi-technological advanced energy efficient system that is intended to reduce the cost of power. Of course, under the energy ESCO, since it's connected to the grid, it's not green. It's not particularly, and given the share of our coal, it's still predominantly coal in terms of energy generation mix. Now there is also what we call the green building projects that under the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act, specifically Section 4B, mandates all buildings, construction, new and retrofit, shall comply with the minimum requirements set in the guidelines on energy conserving design of buildings. So this is already in place, and the technical requirements have been called out in the National Building Code, as well as the Philippine Green Buildings. So renewable energy system and equipment will be deemed compliance with this requirement as set up or promulgated by the Department of Energy. For the Philippine Green Building Council, we have around 7 projects registered as advancing net zero energy projects that applies RE solution and passive design such as the use of natural lights and ventilation. And part of our promulgation or promotion of the energy efficiency and conservation program actually is we have this business toolkit for the ESCOs or the energy service company. So currently we have 32 ESCOs involving about 689 million worth of investment in the country and deriving an energy savings amounting to about 209 million. So that is as of April 2021. Now, with regards to the Green Energy Option Program, right now we have 18 RE suppliers, and we intend to further increase by way of promoting further and assisting our potential renewable energy suppliers. Currently, we have about 100 customers with an equivalent of 31 megawatt coincidental peak demand. Now, this is small compared to the amount of demand that the country has now, which is at 16 gigawatt. But at least we're moving into the direction of empowering further our customer in choosing their renewable energy. And I'm happy that the chair is open to any recommendation or suggestion on how we will be able to make the program more responsive to the needs of our consumers, particularly now that the cost of fuel, no, particularly coal and diesel or gasoline is really skyrocketing. No? So some of the electric cooperatives, by virtue of their contracts, which is some of them are 100% coal, really has impacted on the recent scenario. So that's why a lot of consumers, even the local government units concerned, are really trying, no, so to find ways on how to mitigate this. And I'm happy that Chair Mona is open to any initiatives, no, with the Department of Energy on how we will be able to address this, particularly a lot of costs or a lot of items are now increasing, and even services. With regards to the net metering, actually we're looking at coming up with a recommendation to the Energy Regulatory Commission in the review of the compensation mechanism. Now, like, can it be per unit? Like, for example, if a particular net metering customer has injected 100 kilowatt of energy in the grid, then in the next billing, that 100 kilowatt can be deducted. No? So at least what you generate, you consume technically. And then for the Green Energy Option Program, or before I go into the Green Energy Option Program, we are now currently doing a policy study on what we call the Expanded Rooftop Solar Program. Under this program, there are 3 possible sub-programs or projects. One is leasing of the rooftop for power generation. So instead of using agricultural land for energy generation, no? Particularly in solar, you can use the rooftop and you lease them, no? And then you generate as a regular generator. Next is what we call the supply contingency program, wherein those end user that have more than 100 kilowatt RE facilities within their rooftops or within their premises can sell power in the grid, particularly during supply shortfall. So currently, right now, what is in place is the interruptible load program, wherein at the onset of the yellow alert declaration by the system operator and the distribution utility, the customers, the IoT participants will start up their generation facility, mostly diesel, and they'll get paid that. And imagine how much that would cost to our consumer, no? And then the ramp up and ramp down is being compensated well. Now, under that, we will be coming out with a more definitive structure on how we will be able to allow or to introduce this policy mechanism. Next is what we call the peer-to-peer, no? Peer-to-peer trading, wherein starting with a confined area like an economic zone or subdivisions, they can trade their electricity within the area, but we're looking at the excess area being sold to the grid. Now, so those are some of the innovative scheme that we're looking at as far as um, furthering renewable energy and empowering more our customers to adopt this renewable energy system. Now, in terms of customers or the corporate PPAs, I know that there is difficulties right now for a customers or a contestable customer or a corporate to enter into green energy contract with any RE suppliers because they do not own the renewable energy certificate. So what we're doing right now is to come up with a policy on what we call voluntary RE market, wherein eventually net metering customers and the green energy customers, as well as those that have initiated own use system now for renewable, can earn the necessary RE certificate and sell them to the grid. So those are the initiatives that we're doing right now, and soon we will be coming up with a series of public consultations on these various policies. So I guess that's end my reaction. And of course, I'd like to thank Marlon, Ivan, and the Allotrope partners, the World Resources Institute, and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory for allowing us to share with you our initiatives together with the Energy Regulatory Commission. Rest assured that the government is doing its best to provide the best services and the best option for our customers, particularly those that are venturing into clean energy pathway. So with that, thank you, and good morning, everyone.
Thank you so much, Asek Maylin. As well as usual, very comprehensive and very up-to-date insights from you and your office on these exciting topics on renewable energy. So from what I got from what you shared is the first, the green leases have a resemblance to the ESCO program, as well as the green building requirement under the energy efficiency and conservation law. So maybe there's a way to fuse that together so that with these things, it becomes 100% renewable energy option for possible tenants. There's also the new update on the expanded rooftop solar program. That's very exciting. We're eager to learn more about that and see how that could be a viable pathway for corporate renewable energy procurement. And the peer-to-peer trading as well. That's very exciting. That might help corporates to buy renewable energy as a way for them to answer their demand in line with their corporate commitments. And very exciting to hear as well about the voluntary RE market, RECs being generated from own use and net metering customers. So that's a way, I guess, to produce the RECs that could help corporates achieve their renewable energy targets as well. So these are all very exciting, and happy to hear about these developments. And rest assured, the Clean Energy Investment Accelerator will track these in service to the industry stakeholders.
Yeah,
Thank you, Asset
Marlon, if I
Miley.
may, no, I
Mhm.
forgot to say to Miss Stephanie that we can discuss further on how we will be able to assist you in coming up with your with the whole sim plan, no, on moving into renewable energy.
Right.
Thank you. We'll be happy to meet with her and the group to discuss this one, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Asek. Especially that we've learned, and this really, we're gonna spend the remainder of our time, over 14 minutes or so, just having this moderated discussion, and we can kick things off with what Asek might lead. We've heard that the DOE is very much open to assist companies and corporates with their renewable energy procurement targets. With that, Stephanie, from what you've mentioned about the challenges, what would be a great start that we could that you think uh, could could be uh, could be kicked off in terms of a possible solution that you're looking for? For
Yeah, of
among
course.
corporates, what would be like a great start for direct government support?
Okay. We are now in partnership with PHRE 100, and
Mm-hmm.
recently they have a session or event in Mindanao on
Mm-hmm.
renewable energy access. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe we can build on other organizations so that because DOE cannot do this alone, we need a lot of help. We need a lot of assistance and collaboration with our um, stakeholders and advocates of renewable energy and energy efficiency uh, to really move this project now, because we have noticed that some of the corporate or what we call companies that are eligible to choose their suppliers are still reluctant, no, by way maybe because they have not yet fully understand the program. And of course, with the aid of the Energy Regulatory Commission, we will ease up some of the requirements, particularly GEOP, because in the GEOP program, you will still be using the facilities of the distribution utility. So as long as you do not have any outstanding financial obligations to the distribution utility, you should be allowed to participate, no, and adopt your choice of RE suppliers, no, and then of course, uh, that's one way to ease up participation program and clearly um, have an an information education campaign to all our potential and eligible uh, customers in the country.
Thank you, Asek, Mylene, for that. And then Stephanie, and any thoughts can add or share?
Yeah, thank you to ASEC Mylene. No, we will keep in touch po with your office from Holcim Philippines, and maybe when ASEC Mylene was discussing on the expanded rooftop solar program, I think that is an interesting solution also for us, because currently we have issues on the land availability for solar farms. So I think one alternative is, since we have communities around, I think it's something that we can explore further, and we look forward to knowing more about the program from DOE. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie. And at this point, I'm also eager to hear from Ella on the comment about the green leases having some resemblance on the ESCO model, as well as the green building provisions of the energy efficiency law. Is there a way to make the green lease happen with 100% renewable energy? And is that something that could be imagined or acted upon so that we can have these solutions available eventually?
Yeah, I would say that green leases are complementary to ASCO and then to net metering, because what ASCO and then the net metering rooftop solar does is it solves the problem of the building if you're the owner occupier of the building. But it doesn't solve the situation if you are just one store out of a gigantic shopping mall. Then you do not own the rooftop, and then you cannot perform any of the efficiency upgrades to the entire shopping mall either if you are just a store. So what ASCO and then the rooftop solar program does is to do the first step of having these efficiency or renewable energy in place. And then the green lease is complementary, that it bridges the incentive between the landlord, the property owner, to the tenants. So it's the second stage. So I would say that I think the green lease program will supplement to Philippines' existing program and laws.
Very great insight, Ella, and eager to develop this concept of green leases further alongside US NREL. And now that we've touched on the net metering, there's a question in the Q&A box at ASEC Mylene that some DUs and ECs actually prohibit end users with net metering installations to also participate in the green energy option program, even if their demand on top of solar consumption is over 100 kilowatts. So I think this also reflects back to what I guess the Holcim example. You have a rooftop solar that caters to 15% of your demand, and of course, to have 100% renewable energy, will get it from the grid, right? But there's an observation from the comments that some DUs actually prohibit this. What recourse do these customers have, ASEC Mylene? And is this actually allowed?
Yeah, thank you, Marlon, for that question, and to those to the person who asked that. Actually, it's a violation of the Renewable Energy Act of 2008. You can write us at the Department of Energy because there is a corresponding administrative and criminal liabilities for unwillingness to implement this Renewable Energy Act provisions that would empower customer and further renewable energy in the country. So we welcome any report on that so that we can address the concern. I think one of the issues that being faced by our distribution utilities is the lack of appreciation and understanding on how such a program will work, no? Because of course their concern is more on the power supply contract they entered into. But again, we studied the amount or the volume of electricity that is being bought in the WSM, no, and it's high, no, compared to what is being. So I don't believe that it should be barred. Any customer should be barred from exercising its privilege under the Renewable Energy Act. So we welcome any report so that we can ask the concerned stakeholders or player, and we hope to address any concerns that they may have also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ASEC Mylene. And there's also a related question about, can a GEOP participant also join the net metering program? I guess the answer is yes, because these are provisions of the Renewable Energy Law.
No. What we did is, under the net metering program, the RE facility, and based on the demand of the customers, are limited to up to 100 kilowatt only. The Green Energy program refers to the customers that have a demand of more than 100 kilowatt. But as soon as the Energy Regulatory Commission reduced the contestability to 100 kilowatt, demand, and I believe the GEOP and the net metering can be merged, no, in terms of program implementation.
Okay. Thank you so much for the clarification, Asek.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
in the interest of time, maybe we can explore that in a next industry dialogue. So I think at this juncture, I would really just give the floor to Stephanie and Ella for final thoughts and recommendations on what could you recommend be a next set of next steps that could, based on your experience and what you've observed, that the industry can work together on as we ensure that we empower customers towards renewable energy choice, and be able to reap the benefits of such alternatives and options. I'll give the floor to you first, Stephanie.
All right. So first of all, thank you for inviting Halls in Philippines in this industry dialogue. And thank you also to Ella, Asek, Maylene, and Honorable Dimalanta on their inputs. So from Halls in Philippines as an end user, we will continue to collaborate with relevant stakeholders, especially with the government, on the policy support and framework to enable the ease of transition, no, of corporates to green energy. And then we will continue to be proactively engaged also with the policy discussions. And also, as a corporate, we will continue to invest and explore alternative technology for us to accelerate a reduction on scope 2 emissions. So we look forward to more collaboration actually with ASEC, Mylene's office, and all the relevant stakeholders. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I hope this also becomes the start of our deep engagement and collaboration with Holcim with the Clean Energy Investment Accelerator. And Ella, eager to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, sure. I want to echo Ms. Stephanie on the thanks to our host, and then also to Azamale and to Chair Mona Lisa on this very interesting discussion. I find that a lot of the programs Philippines are carrying out are extraordinarily interesting, and I think it bodes a lot of promise for promoting renewable energy, especially for corporates. I'm extremely excited about the three programs on rooftop expansion of rooftop solar program. As Marlene mentioned, I'm also very excited about what Chair Mona Lisa talked about regarding the retail aggregation program. I think these hold a lot of potential for expanding the choices of corporations, and I look forward to working with your offices on assisting Philippines with the renewable energy transition, on CRES and on other possible projects. I'm actually helping them with the load forecasting as well. So I look forward to future collaboration.
All right. Thank you so much, Ella. And we reserve the last question to Asek Mylene, because this is also a great way to wrap up the dialogue. There are eligible GEOP customers that are not able to switch because the location of their ECs or DUs are not yet registered in the WESM for GEOP. Maybe this is a big issue, and that limits corporate RE procurement in certain geographies. Maybe ASEC just a way to end this industry dialogue with some insights and plans related to that.
Yeah, thank you, Marlon. Actually, it's also we're thinking also why GEOP is only available in areas where there is a wholesale electricity spot market. Maybe because there is what we call the CRSS, or under the current ARCOBA, IMAP, or the market operator, was designated as the central registration body. But technically, it is possible that even without WESM operating in an area like Mindanao, customers should be provided with the opportunities to exercise their privilege. So it's one of the items that we may amend. No? in our policy for the Green Energy Action Plan.
Thank you so much, Asek, and truly, it's been such an enjoyable industry dialogue. We look forward to collaboration and further cooperation as we carry out things that were mentioned in this conversation this morning. We talked about capacity building for existing policies. We talked about retail aggregation sandbox pilots and looking forward to the expanded rooftop solar program, either via leasing rooftop for solar, supply contingency program, and the peer-to-peer trading, and exploring further how the green leases can be applied to the Philippines, given that these are already available in certain markets. So the overall goal, of course, is to allow procurement options to be available to companies and corporates, because they have set the leadership, they have set the pioneering moves towards net zero ambitions and 100% renewable energy. We want buyers to buy, sellers to sell, we want the finance to flow, and that's really the aim of the Clean Energy Investment Accelerator as we lead industry dialogues with this. So to those that have joined us and stayed with us, thank you. We look forward to seeing you again. We will have our key takeaways and send you the presentations accordingly. And for the industry leaders and our government partners, as well as our corporates, we look forward to seeing you again in the next industry dialogues. On behalf of the Clean Energy Investment Accelerator, my co-manager for the Philippines program, Ivan Lembuco, this has been Marlon Apanyada, your moderator for today's discussion. We look forward to the next ones. Thank you and have a great rest of the day and a happy weekend ahead. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take care.